You're listening to Sonica on Wholehearted Men.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Wholehearted Men Show with your host, Sonica. Every day in the news, we stand witness to examples of a world in which more and more men are showing up broken, misdirected, aggressive, violent, emotionally and mentally unstable. There's a visible lack of emotional intelligence evident in male culture that needs education and rehabilitation. We need to teach men how to love. On the Wholehearted Men Show, we explore how to help men live life with heart. The Wholehearted Men Show is sponsored by the Institute for Wholehearted Men, whose primary goal is to nurture the emotional and mental health of men so they can engage with the world wholeheartedly. Join us as we take this journey to change the hearts of men, one conversation at a time.
The Wholehearted Men Show. The Wholehearted Men Show. The Wholehearted Men Show.
Simon Chilembo was born in Welcome, South Africa. He identifies as a South African, Zambian, Norwegian, and he's currently living in Oslo, Norway, where he has been since August of 1988. He lived in Lusaka from 1975 to 1988. His occupation, aside from being a prolific writer, is a poet and critical thinker. He is a health and wellness specialist, a medical massage therapist, a life coach, a neuro-linguistic programming master practitioner. He's a 6th Dan black belt karate master, teaches personal safety management and fitness, and he opened and led 2 karate schools in Oslo for 25 years from 1988 to 2013. He retired from karate teaching recently, and his schools continue under leadership of former senior students. His karate career, competition, and teaching started and blossomed in Lusaka and peaked at University of Zambia whilst a student there from 1982 to 86. He's also an entrepreneur and holds a BA in Humanities and Social Sciences from University of Zambia in Lusaka. He has published 6 books, which are available on Amazon: When the Mighty Fall, Machona Immigrant, Machona Awakening, Home in Gray Matter, Machona Son, Ain't Going Nowhere, Machona Blogs, As I See It, Machona Mother, Shabina Queen, and his latest release is COVID-19 and I, Killing Conspiracy Theories, soon to be released through a publisher in Zambia. And you can go to his website at www.chilembo.com and get all the information about Simon and all his exploits. Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Wholehearted Men Show. And my guest today is Simon Chilembo, and he is joining us right out of Norway. And Norway via Zambia, South Africa is actually his trajectory. He is actually Sensei Simon Chilembo, who, when we were younger guys, one of the things I admired about him most is that he had found his passion pretty young. He was our ninja, our resident Lusaka ninja, who was a black belt at some ungodly young age, and we all used to marvel at his kicks and his abilities. I was actually at school with his younger brother, Peter, aka Tabo, and we grew up together in Manali. So he's another one of those people with who is an ordinary man with an extraordinary story that I thought we should bring here to the Wholehearted Men Show. So welcome, Simon.
Thank you very much, Sonica. It's a great honor, to be here. And please forgive me, you as a presenter and the audience, if you see tears rolling down my eyes. I get very emotional about this. It's been 32 years.
A long time.
Yeah, long time.
Long time. He was telling me a story recently, which he's got a better memory than I do sometimes. I always thought I had an elephant memory, but you were reminding me about some things that made me go, wait a minute, yeah, So we will get into that in a little bit more, but I think in the bio that has been told, we tell a little bit about yourself. But I think let me start off by asking you about the reason you ended up in Norway, right? The reason you left South Africa
Mhm.
and ended up in Norway. Let's start with the hard questions first.
Yep.
Okay.
I like them hard. The harder, the better. Hard man, you know.
So what led to you leaving South Africa and ending up in
South
Norway?
Africa, in the 70s, it's still, in the peak, of apartheid. That's a structural, systemic racism form of government. And my parents managed to organize papers and everything so we could leave the country. My parents' greatest concern was to see that us, their children, got a better education than we had access to, the little that we had in South Africa. And that's also because Thabo, my younger brother, and I, your friend, had already had started schooling in Lesotho, actually. So they already had this concrete idea that, in liberated Africa, things were going to be higher. Zambia was a natural choice, because my father came from Zambia. It's my fatherland, yes. That was
Okay.
1975. We arrived in Lusaka in March, 23rd March, 1975. Yeah.
So how old were you then? How old were you when you came to Zambia?
Well, when we left South Africa in June 1975, I was 14 and a half years old. So my birthday is June. So when we arrived in Lusaka in March, I was 14 years and 9 months old, and I celebrated my 15th birthday in Lusaka in June that year. It was a great year.
What was that adjustment like for you in terms of coming to this place? I think you've mentioned some of the freedoms you were talking about, some of the things that you didn't have, and don't mind me, I'm trying to pull up some research materials up here. But what was that adjustment like for you?
I mean, adjusting to Zambia, is a mixed feelings journey. On the one hand, we take familiar things. You last week when you're talking with Wajipa, I think you mentioned something like somebody having said to you, talking about refamiling oneself.
Correct.
Yeah.
Right. Refamilying yourself.
Yeah, refamiling yourself. So on the one hand, you have adjusting to the new family relations, on my father's side, and then there is the macro, adjustment. I mean, to the broader society. It was. It was. It turned my world upside down. And the impact, of that in my life, is what you see today. you know, and you must remember that it was a great challenge. My father hadn't been back home, in Zambia since 1951.
Okay.
And even in 1951, we're still in the days of Mufedro, in the federal
Right.
days,
Right. Right.
Federation of Nyasaland, Rhodesia and Nyasaland,
Right.
and
Right.
when he comes back, a little over 20 years later, he comes back home, and home has now changed to Zambia in a huge way.
Right.
You know,
Right.
yeah,
Right.
and Zambia was a completely new world, and so that affected family relations in a big way, because this is important, in relation to just from the top of my head, and I can postulate that almost every family in Zambia, could say that at one time or another they had a relative, probably a male, who has ended up in South Africa, maybe come
Right.
back eventually, machonas,
Mm.
and
Explain
these people had
what you mean when you say machona.
machona is derived from the verb, ukuchona, which means to disappear
Right.
in Zulu, in Xhosa, South Africa, and when where the sun sets in the west, it's called Nchonilanga, Chonalanga, so in this case it's used to describe a person who goes away from home,
Right.
for a long time, might not even come back. It has a derogatory tone to it also, and especially when the machona comes back, with nothing. Apiria Nabuela. Remember the song?
Yes, I remember the
Yeah,
song. Apiriana
yeah,
Bwela.
Mukati masutukesi kunaliwe kantu, It
Right.
comes back,
You
with
you
this,
go you go and you come back, but you don't come back with riches and
yeah,
with what I'm saying, with things that people can look at as tangible
yeah,
improvements, so to speak. Right.
yeah. Now let me tell you, those people had no chance, man.
Right.
And this is why I address, in my books,
Mm.
the book, the first book is book in the series, Machona series.
Right.
It's inspired by my father's life, and his generation.
Right.
But I looked, I saw my father first, and his living situation. Those people, had no chance. Um, grossly misused, abused. On the one hand, you have apartheid, and on the other, you have xenophobia and all that. It's
Right.
always been there. It wasn't as violent, as in later years. So in Zambia, Malawi, and all these places, where people, cried out, no, our uncle Dani, disappeared, what, he never did anything for us, for the family, is because they could not.
Right.
It's,
Right.
it's,
Especially, I mean,
they
if
could
you
not,
were,
it was utterly impossible.
yeah, how do you
Yeah,
survive in apartheid South
yeah,
Africa? Yeah, at the height,
yeah,
of
of
apartheid.
exploitation,
Right.
yeah. So then but these are things I understand now, but so when my father and many like him, come back, they have nothing to show,
Mm.
they are old men. My father was in his early 50s, or no, thereabout, when he gets when he gets to Zambia, nothing, and it comes back, that readjustment is to find a job, job, and they ask for CVs. What is a CV? You
Mm.
know, you know, you know, to a man or even a woman later has been exploited, in South Africa and all that, Modern Zambia, at the time in 70s, is operating at that level, We have already had, like, 3 streams of University of Zambia graduates,
Mm.
at least in the arts of the 4-year degrees, that yeah. Zambia is another world, So it was very tough. I mean, to adjust, for my parents, and that translated down to us children, and also the family, the father's family, people, there were lots of angry people, really bitter, at my father having neglected them, he didn't send money for schools, what it's like, and
Right.
schools, and all that, supporting the family back home, It's because the poor man had no means, he could not,
Right.
and these people go down there, as my father was 15, 16 years old, when he gets to South Africa, they grow up there, they, like I become a man in Norway, I became a man in Norway, they get married, they have children, suddenly, they have, immediate pressing problems of looking after their own families here and now.
Right. Right.
How could they, But those are
So
things, people didn't understand,
yeah. So we've setting up this base for, your father coming back to Zambia and you guys getting into the system, getting the school system, you were in high school, what we call high school, secondary school at home, when you're getting in around 14 and so on and so forth. And I think you we kind of grew up in the same place, grew up in the same, in my conversation again, like with Wajipa, like you were chiming in, and the reality of it is that very, very closed and close-knit community where we all kind of knew each other. You at some point, and I think it was, you shared 88, right? And in 88, left Zambia, right? As a young man. And where did you go? You went to where did you go?
I came to Norway.
You came to Norway.
Okay. Norway was not a conscious choice.
Explain that. What do you mean by not a conscious choice?
Hey, when we are in Zambia, when we are in former English colonies, we aspire for London, don't we? We aspire for Oxford, Cambridge, the United States, and MIT, UCLA, you name them, Harvard, huh? That's you catch my drift,
right?
Right. But Norway, was pure accident, that the opportunity just came, somebody gives me a pamphlet, promoting a private business college here, I could come and do my MBA here and all that, I would have access to the Norwegian State Educational Loan Fund. Wow, all I had to do was to get myself here, and also I'd already started working, the central bank, boss, and I did a good job,
BOZ is for our listeners. BOZ is Bank of Zambia.
Yeah, the Central Bank of Zambia. Yeah, and but because of mainly these familial issues, I just had to get out of Zambia, at earliest opportunity, and it became Norway. But it would be unfair to say, to suggest that it was 100% familial issue, but it was also the need for a wider platform, to express myself.
You felt that the platform was not wide enough in Zambia for you to express yourself?
I needed space, that at that time, I'm like a star, karate star in Norway, Unza Karate Club, the best karate club, and all that, students of now Professor Stephen Chan, that it was great, so I felt the need, to
spread your wings,
get out, go in the big world, meet Chuck Norris and everybody, all the big stars, of the time, martial arts, Brucey was already dead, so I saw Norway, as just transit, I would out here, get that MBA and then do what I have to do, to get across the pond. Probably end up Oxford, of course, Cambridge, that kind of thing, but the Harvard was like the United States, and but then things happen, that that you can't explain, so you just have to adapt, make big changes, in your life. The first 3 years, life was just rock and roll, and things
you had to learn Norwegian, didn't you? You had to learn Norwegian, right? You had to learn Norwegian, right? Yeah.
You had to learn Norwegian, yeah. It was part of the scholarship program and everything. It was greatly beneficial, and all that. But so what I want to say that then the first 3 years, I was going to be here 3.5 years, and the first 3 years, were just student life, university student life was just rock and roll, real cool, and I just had 6 months to go, and then my eyes fall on this girl, and at nanoseconds, that's what my eyes fell on this girl, and that was it.
You sound like many a man who's been in trouble.
yeah, really. I mean, trouble. Yeah, you can say it's like a bang,
Uh-huh.
Like I said, you talk about rock and roll life. She wasn't the first girl, I saw. It was,
Right, right.
there had been, I'm a student, raw from Africa, mad, but it's this one girl, and that was it. Before I knew it, 10 years were gone. That's how I got.
Did you get married?
We cohabited,
Cohabited.
yeah,
Okay.
for almost 8 years, and yeah, and then after 8 years, it was a a challenging relationship. But we didn't fight or anything, but we have find things, nuances of life, cultural, and
Was she from Norway?
she's Norwegian, yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah,
Okay.
and but those are things, that when we get stuck out here in the diaspora, and in this case, my father and others, out there, the uncles and all that, we got stuck in Kusidia, it's called South Africa, it's the same thing, you find that you are stuck, you have to you have to leave, you have a new relationship, you suddenly have a family, and all that, what do? The emotions, it's the heart is very strong. I don't share the idea that love is blind. No, love is not blind. Love is a pure emotion. It's a given. It's what we do for what we think love commands us.
Right.
To do. That. So then you have to learn to adapt. And you find that you don't become the stuff that you had in your head when you came out here, your ambitions, growing up, not many of us, succeed in achieving that. You become something else, academically, professionally, But what that means,
I was about to ask you what that means, so go
yes,
ahead.
yeah. What that means is that I was going to be a doctor when I grew up. It was a given. From I was a child at school everywhere. And everybody knew doctor. The teachers at school. Home neighbors. In South Africa, everybody knew I was going to be a doctor. That. But I'm not a doctor today. But I'm still happy. I'm still healthy. That I'm still strong. And maybe I wouldn't have written books if I became a doctor. But that's my point. You see, so you've got to be pragmatic, got to be realistic. You get here, you are dealt, a certain hand of cards, play it.
Okay. So what did you play into? You didn't become a doctor, but then what did you do? What was the alternative?
Yeah, no, the idea of doctors that got crushed when we go to Zambia, in the first place. So I came here to study economics and end up, with a PhD and get international work experience. And when South Africa opens, eventually I would be the Central Bank of South Africa governor. That was my. Yeah, but it didn't happen. So, but thing is, so you have to be flexible, man. And you have to take life, as it comes, and the great thing about the diaspora here, to some extent, South Africa for these Machona guys, we have more opportunities, even if they are not the ideal, opportunities, from our preferences and dreams, but they are there, You just have to, have this what I call a mind switch, and then you will survive. You will live happily ever after, much like it's happened to me.
So you cohabit and you are there for a while, but at some point you made a decision to move back to South Africa after, the end, so to speak, when Nelson Mandela came out of prison, I assume, and there was a transfer of power
Yeah.
into majority rule. So this was 90. What was it?
19,
90.
my next model gets released, in 1990 February,
Right.
and then 1994 April.
Right.
Apartheid ends, the new
Apartheid.
rainbow nation is born. Yeah.
Right. Right. So when did you get back home? When did you decide that, hey, I'm packing it up
I
from
went
here and
back
I'm
home
moving?
many years later, in 2013.
Okay.
What happens, is that I'm a late bloomer. Uh, when I started schooling in Zambia, actually, I was supposed to at high school, but we couldn't get to school in 1975, and in 1976, as a result, of the inferior South African education, we were pushed back.
Right.
So coming to Zambia cost me 2, maybe 3 years, of education, of schooling years. So when I was in Form 1, the first year at high school, I was 17 years old, with the 11, 12-year-old, oldest classmates.
Wow.
But
Wow. I didn't
yeah,
know that.
you see, so that's why my best friend in the world, is 5 years younger than me. And
Wow.
Cabo, my younger brother, is probably 3 to 5 years older than you.
All
The
right.
same story.
Right.
My younger sister also. You know,
All right.
you know. But so so then you find that time is going, and this is a very critical moment now. Say, do I still when I'm now 1994, let me say, when the relationship ended, if in any case, the beginning of year 2000, actually, and year 2000 is my 40th year, and then suddenly I'm free, that then I
Mm,
can do what I like now. I'm single, and I was already rocking, economical, my business, and everything. I was making a lot of money, life was just, rock and roll, and what do I do now? I'm 40 years. I mean, you have guys at home, at 40, at home in Africa, at 35, they're already dreaming about retirement homes, and all that. My uncle, when he was in the mid 30s, he was saying to me that, Simon, we die, at age 40. Please don't stop being stupid, and the growing up talks, So, and I say, my God, no, 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 no. I just have to work, make as much money as I can, invest in property back home, and of
right.
course, the sponsor schools, for children, and all that. All these things are good things to do for our families back home, So then I just said, I had this mind switch. I'll just work. So I worked and worked and worked. I had no social time. I had a health and wellness clinic, and I had 2 karate schools. So I was like busy, like 24/7. 7 days a week. It was an incredible life. Made a lot of money, but at some point, and as we age, and this is an important factor, for people to the younger, those who are younger than us and you coming out here, you must remember, we all get old. We're all going to get old, and at some point there are changes, physiological, hormonal, that we can't do anything about. At some point, the body is going to say no. So in 2013, I was so tired, man, and my business has suffered from in 2008, the global finance crisis, financial crisis of the year. In many ways, apart from the corona disease, virus disease now, it was more or less the same, the business is collapsing, and all that, I got a
Right.
knock there, and for 5 years, I worked, my everything and trying to regain it. It didn't work. So after 5 years, I just said I closed business and go home to mama, see if I can get myself or back or even just settle,
How did that make you feel? How did that make you feel? Like for lack of a better word, being in a situation where you were dealing with failure. Okay, for
Yeah,
lack of a better word.
you
How
feel
did that
small.
make you feel? And keeping in mind the African component of that, like you were saying, uncles, people saying, young people in their 30s saying, hey, you get all this stuff, blah, 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 we should be retiring. And here you are, you've tried your best, you've had successful businesses, and all of a sudden with this crash, you lose your businesses or you have to close your businesses. And now you're thinking literally of changing locations, not only locations, but literally emigrating again, back home. How does that feel?
Yeah.
And how did you deal with that?
There's something about success, translated to, money, cash and things, and the power by way of your ability to influence things, solve problems, There's something about it. It's a very magical journey, and when you suddenly lose it, and you've created, again, there comes that expression, that we spoke about, earlier on, prior to pre-recording, that illusion, that bubble, you create this illusion, and you live in this bubble, and everyone else, in the family network and friends, back home and everything, they're looking at you through the walls of this bubble, all right, and then it blows. Suddenly, oi, you remain, naked like everyone else. And then, who do you think you are? What did you think you were? You're just like us, man. That hurts, man. And then it's not so much things people say about you. It's more what they do. For me anyway, when people turn their backs on you because your Visa cards, you don't even have Visa card, you don't have Master, you don't have American, they are all taught, that, man, that hurts,
That's the Western civilization life right there. I tell people that that's Western civilization right there.
That hurts, it breaks people down. So, everybody turns their backs on you, man. But what eventually that does, if you survive like I did, is that then exactly who your friends are, both socially, external relations, and in the family, let me say, who your tribe, who members of your tribe are. That's the beauty of this. But you've got to survive it. If you don't, then you end up doing drastic things. Self-abuse, alcoholism, drug abuse, and ultimately suicide.
And I think that's something that many men suffer from in terms of measurement issues. Because what happens is, I think that society has measured men by what we do for so long. Not necessarily who we are, but what we do. What we do and what we have. Our ability to provide is something that, women like to, no, I love the, but the reality of it is women choose men often by that barometer. Is this a person that can survive, that can provide for me and kids? And, it's a natural, it's naturally part of the existence of nature. It's the same thing that animals do. It's like, which male can provide for these kids the best, which one can give the best genes, and it's probably something that's not even like a conscious thought. It's a very unconscious, very reptilian, for lack of a better word, reaction to finding men. And I think what happens is, because we are this being that has transcended all other animals, and we have free will, we have this gap between impulse and action, where we can think and make decisions, that we haven't been able to escape the fact that the brain hasn't changed much since prehistoric times. It's still led by the need for energy. You know what I'm saying? The need for the dopamine hits, the sugar, fat. You know, we want to be. You need that energy so that you can do this, and it has led to male suicide. It has led to depression. A lot of men are depressed. A lot of men have killed themselves because they just feel that they cannot, that when they suffer things like you said about failure, that the world has come to an end. The ability for me to pick back up at 50, 60, when I have suffered financial ruin, it's like, geez, I could only do this when I was a young man. Here I am trying to reinvent myself as an adult.
I turned 60 this year in June,
Congratulations, belated. I think I already said happy birthday to you, but there we are.
And I say to people, my network has, reduced, drastically. It's fantastic. So the people, those who are still there for me when you talk about things, new clients, that kind of thing. Not say, guys, I'm only getting started.
Right.
People, official pension, age here, is 67. Depending on where, work history, you can also take, from 62, 65, and all that. I have no time for that. I'm going to fall working. I'm going to die working. I'm going to die in front of my PC, writing books.
Being passionate, working your passions.
I really am. I'm getting started.
Right.
I feel. I say to people, you remember the feeling you got, when you finished in those days, Form 5, grade 12 exams. You remember that feeling after the school leavers? You do this. When did we do the school leavers ball? Was it before or after the exams? I don't remember.
You're asking me a tough question.
Yeah, but listen, man. But listen, but when if you just say no, the alpha male, comes out, now I'm king of the world, There's I'm going to be doctor, engineer, you thought, you thought that's how I feel now. I feel like, that when I finished Form 5, when I finished university, I feel new. I feel fresh.
Because I think it's about passion. You found your passion.
Yeah.
Actually, for you, I shouldn't say you found your passion, because I think you were passionate about karate.
Yeah.
So you just, I
was coming to that you this can't work if you don't know yourself.
Yes.
If you don't know who you are.
Yes.
Know thyself. Know what you stand for. That philosophical side of things. Your values. The norms, etc. That. But then comes your potential. What you have in here. What you can do. How your feelings guide you towards attainment of your visions. Your dreams.
And also, I think one of the things that misses a lot of times is having people around you to help you with that, because there are many cases where young men specifically don't have people around them to help them with, the translating what's happening in my mind and my heart into how do I articulate that into something that talks about passion. And when you don't have mentors or you don't have guidance, sometimes your best ideas, you know what I'm saying, fall on unfertile soil, because you're not running them past people who have had some experiences, beyond what you have.
And that's what I see as one of the most important aspects, of that magic of our growing up years in Zambia. Although some of us, we never had through sports. I had an interaction with with older guys through karate, because I was so good. But my age mates, I would just run them down. So I got a lot of mentoring. From older guys through karate. But the generation, of our parents, our uncles, and aunties, at that time, they were so important. I mean, the first president, the first republic, Kaunda, the cabinet, all those things, those were like, real men, real women, despite, their infallibility, but, there was something,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
about, about the Zambian, the first generation, of the first years of Zambian leaders, at all levels, of society, whether it be in politics, whether it be in business, whether it be in academia. There was something special, I speak for myself, but I like to think that many others, you looked at them, you had very, very tangible role models. Whether it was football, Godfrey Chitalus, and others, you know what I mean? Dennis Liwewes and others, Charles Mando, Chimi Mvula on Radio Zambia, TV, you know what I mean? They were these solid individuals, that when you saw them, it wasn't about liking or hating or no, it was just, wow, what a human being.
So,
You catch my drift?
yeah, I actually lost you for a little bit. You were frozen on
Yes.
my end.
Yeah.
So when you were talking about the Kaunda aspect, I'll be able to, like I said, we'll be able to put it together. But you were talking about the Kaundas and them, and I think we lost you. So if you can just remember from the point at which you were just talking about.
Yes. What I wanted to say that about the Zambia of our time, at least from my perspective, is that the adults, the first generation of influential adults of the new republic, during the first 10, 20, 15, 20 years, right up until, the late 90s, 1980s, when we left. I can only speak about, that period.
Right.
We had, solid, strong individuals, despite their own failings, also, but there was something about they radiated this confidence,
Right.
that whether like we know it or we don't, we will move forward.
We'll figure it out. There
Zambia will
was a
move forward.
nationalist.
You know,
I and I agree with you, because I think that the first thing that I've always said is that we sometimes forget how young these people were. Many of them
yes,
were when they became responsible for nations.
yeah,
And the second part we forget is that they had to be really disciplined
yeah,
about not abusing
mm,
the power that they had, and then sticking to the script, because the script that they had was a national script that said, we want to educate as many of our people as we can. We want to offer them health care, which they've never had. So we want a healthy population,
yeah,
we want an educated population.
mm,
They may not have made all the right economic decisions, because again,
mm,
as I've said, I don't know whether I would have been able to make those smart decisions in my 20s
yeah,
for a whole nation.
mm,
So the fact that we did get primarily free education up
mm,
to a certain point in our lives, the fact that we were able to get free medical care, free dental care up to a certain stage. It may have been very unrealistic, given the fact that we had copper at 1 to 1. We literally were at one kwacha to a pound at some point, and as inflation and the pricing of copper, which was controlled by the West, of course,
yeah,
changed.
mm,
That kind of changed the dynamics, and maybe
yeah,
they didn't move quickly enough to make the economic decisions they had. But I truly respect what you're saying, because I agree with it. We can always point fingers at Africa, but we also know that there are lots of other players in the global economy who have a vested interest in Africa always being poor,
mm,
poorly led,
yeah,
poorly managed, because it gives them access to Africa's minerals at the bargain
mm,
basement prices.
mm. Right,
So,
in all these also, we mustn't forget, the negative impact, of the rise, in oil prices,
yes,
you know,
yes, yes.
in Zambia, and also at the same time, this is, for me, one of the really elegance, of Zambia at the time. Remember, that's still at the height, of the liberation struggle of, of South Africa. Zambia does all these things, against, the huge, negative impact
Right.
of the sanctions, economic sanctions against Africa. When South Africa, closes the railway connection, that Zambia had, to the sea, not in the least, the terrorism attacks, against
Yeah,
Zambia
we
and all
lost
that,
access to goods. We lost access. We were, things that were on the shelf were no longer there.
Mm.
So you're right. You're right. But
Until,
go ahead.
there was that, degree, appreciable degree of integrity, of
Yeah.
hope,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, you know,
And I
that,
and I and I think that's what we hold on to so much, because I think that when there has never truly, I think when you say you're Zambian,
Mm.
when you say you're Zambian anywhere, anywhere, it's a lot of people who say that we're very proud, because, and I attribute that directly to Kaunda's era, that he created a level of integrity as a person, a level of integrity as a nation, that's the one thing we do not want anybody to demean. That's the one thing, when they catch some Zambian doing crazy stuff and they're arrested somewhere, we feel like national shame, because we aren't like some other nations where it's typical of an individual from that nation to be, running a scam or doing this or doing that. That's not our nature.
No, it's not.
Because we
really.
were raised to have this national pride. And I think that you make a good point. But I want to get back to you and this conversation about, you went back home and you had decided, you packed everything up, you went back home, and you were in this place where you had decided, okay, I'm going to try and make something of me. But you went home, and here you are back in Norway, right?
Yes.
So you went back home. How, you had nothing. What makes you go back to, what happened when you went back to one of your motherlands? And what were you
I'm very
doing?
proud of that trinity, actually.
Exactly. And what happened that
I felt more, I feel more valued here in Norway
explain
than in South Africa, than in Zambia. It's a very subjective thing. That said, does not mean, that I've turned my back, against, the other two countries. No. Just both functionally, functionally from the point of view, that I can live, I can do my things, I can write books, I can write blogs, I can go out, after midnight and walk, all around the city Oslo, with minimal fear, if any, that something bad can happen to me. No, that and also in terms of appreciation of my person, things, things that I do, things that I stand for. This place here, Norway, is not a paradise. Far from it. No,
right.
It's hard here. It's hard everywhere. But I like to say, I was born in South Africa. I grew up in Zambia. I became a man in Norway. I came as a 20-year-old, 28-year-old in Norway, and I'm 60 years old now. But it's from when I come here suddenly, when I come to Norway first time, suddenly I'm in a situation where, I find, my God, I have to buy my own side plates,
Right.
I have to cook I've always cooked, started to cook. I started doing domestics, from the age of 12, so it wasn't new, but to look after myself, it wasn't a new deal. It wasn't, but from the point of view of now sourcing, when I was growing up, my parents, would give me money to go to the market and buy. Remember those hybrid chickens, the white chickens, you know, But now I find myself in a situation, oh man, I have to hustle, for my money. I have to hustle for money, which is my money, to go and buy my food and prepare my food for myself. Now that was a completely new dynamic, you know. And of course, personal relations, girls, women, eventually, and all that, and then the big decisions now, should I stay? Should I go? What do I want to do? Um, I wasn't always successful in Norway. I had a very tough start, but I went through a 5-year period of unemployment, and all that. I had no papers here, the papers, I had papers problems, and all, because I had originally come on a student visa. But when I fell in love and I cohabited, I had to change that. It was difficult, bureaucratically, but when it took off, And so then doing grown up things, when establishing, 2 karate schools, I helped raise children, Norwegian children. Uh, there's an estimate that, over a 25-year, 25-year period, there's between 3,000 and 5,000 children who have gone through my system. I'm very proud of that, and so then you get this special attachment, I love children very much, without having any sexual connotations, kind of thing. But I love children, this paternal, paternal love, for children, if I don't have children of my own yet. But and then I do things that are not normal, I broke all the rules here, 2 karate schools, I'm new, nobody knows me, I'm not the biggest guy physically, I'm short, man. 160 Norwegian, my students grow up to be 180, 2 meters tall, my rivals in other karate school, the Vikings, it was really tough, and so and I had to protect my students, in competitions, all these places and all that, in seminars, etc. And I started eventually start business, my health and wellness clinic, and all that, and wow, so I did things that were not normal, for a foreign and a black man, for that matter, if you wash toilets and everything, that's okay. That's what the black people do, black men, these poor Africans, and then I do things, wow, and then all these things, leave marks, in the wider, Norwegian society. I've been into things, I've been reality shows, and all that, but I don't want to claim, that I'm a celebrity. No, far from it. But I often say that my name, my face, are familiar. They are known.
Right. How did that translate home, though? When you got home, or what did that translate into when you
when I'm home, things were superstar level, to the extent that I had the money to flash, in that bubble. But like I said, when the bubble breaks and suddenly, I'm normal, people, then I start walking,
the car, you're no longer driving now, you're walking.
I no longer drive, flashy cars, and all that. So, oi,
Yeah, in Zambia, we used to have a saying which means wasila, which basically means you're finished.
Wasila, yes, yeah. Wasila.
Finished.
And then remember again that bubble, it's very dangerous in the sense that it changes you. I think Norwegian now. It changes the perspective, that people develop, perspective of you. So people develop, over here. Suddenly, so you become a Muzungu.
Okay.
You see?
So
go ahead. And Muzungus, yes. You see, and Muzungu is eternal power. Just theoretically,
And so for listeners, Muzungu basically means a white man or a white woman.
Yeah.
Right.
To white men with power, and all that, to the extent, to the extent that you are powerful, you have money, you have influence, and everything. You make things happen. Then suddenly you become Muzungu. But when you lose that power for whatever reason, your own stupidity as a businessman or whatever, or things that you cannot control, the current situation now, the coronavirus lockdowns, and all that, So then that Muzungu becomes fake,
Hmm.
and then everybody that was depending on you, for money and things and all that, they spit on you, man, on your feet, hang,
How did
That
that?
gets to you. I
Yeah.
went into a depression, and because I got totally disillusioned, I never saw it coming, I never, it came like, lightning from a clear blue sky, and I said, wow, I thought I thought I had people here, even
Mm.
immediate family, and then I went into a depression, you see, and I thought it would last because I've worked with depression in my job. I'm a trained life coach, the NLP, master practitioner. So I know these things. I've saved at least 5 lives, So I knew, where this would ultimately end, when when I lose hope, if I lose hope, So I knew this, and so I decided I won't go to the external therapy and all that. I'll work with myself.
Oh.
One of the most beautiful things that ever happened. I said, I'll work with myself. I'll do to myself what I did, what I've done to my clients, yeah, and change my daily routines, and all that, work gardening, work the soil, I live in a concrete jungle here. I lived 25 years in a concrete jungle, in Norway, I want a peach, a mango,
Right. Right.
I
Right.
went to a shop, whereas in Zambia, South Africa, we have mango trees,
Right. Mm.
um, so then, I treated myself, but when I finally came out of it, I didn't know, that I had recovered, or I was on a higher trajectory now when it comes to recovery. When that happened, book writing was born. So
Okay.
one morning in August 2015, um, I wake up as usual. I go and inspect my garden, and it's nice, and it's springtime, August in Southern Africa, as everything is brighter, than usual. The sounds are more intense, and everything. There's this special feeling, the birds, the sounds. I couldn't figure out what was this, And then after some minutes, it clicked, and then I knew, and I said it loud. I remember, the wall, 2-meter walls we built, around our bourgeois houses, from bourgeoisie, petit bourgeois. so, so I remember saying, loud, the man is back. I said that loudly.
Wow.
I knew that now the man is back. And then again, I continued. I say, what now, Mr. Chilembo? And then it's incredible. And then I hear a
Yeah.
voice at my nape here. That voice said very fast, again in English, said, you have been dreaming of writing books since you were a teenager. Now the time has arrived. And
Nice.
that was it. I ran into my house, opened my iMac, and blah, 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 blah. 14 days. The first book,
Book was
When the
born.
Mighty Fall,
Yeah.
was written. 14 days, effectively.
And that's you, and you were saying. So I think part of this, we have about 5 minutes left in the show, but I think let's get to some of the reasons why you ended up going back to Norway. Probably are born out of the books that you were writing, right? And your voice, that you had found this voice. If
Yeah,
I'm saying, because you now started to pontificate about a lot of things,
yeah,
including what?
yeah. Including politics. You see, I think, in fact, earlier on in the evening, in this meeting that I had, with the Oslo Writers League members and all, we talk about, if, I finally found, that there's two sides of me as an author. There's the, the side that looks, at, objective reality, politics and, science, that kind of thing. And then there is the creative, the poet, the fiction writer, the novel side of it, So when it comes to the real world, then I respond, I'm a student of politics. Guess where I studied politics? University of Zambia, of course.
Right.
You know, So then, my University of Zambia political education, has highly sensitized me to, the happenings all around me, political leadership and everything, what is in the country. So, and as a creative, I don't know how to keep quiet,
Right.
So in South Africa, Zambia itself, I'll write about the corruption, I'll write about the injustices, whether it's a pure political leadership, in economic mistakes and everything, whether it's social, and I'll write about, my opinions about, homosexuality, I'll write about, the right of women, to choose, whether they want to have children or not, I have nothing to fear, you see. So I was touching those sensitive subjects that made many people in power uncomfortable in South Africa, to the extent that, reliable information came to me, as politicians will say, reliable information came to me and say, Mr. Chilembo, forget it, man, this place here, you'll never get anywhere, by way of, your ambitions, to resettle, so establish yourself now as a writer, or whatever, politics, forget, business, no chance, all those were close to me because of that. People are just, putting stumbling blocks everywhere for me, for that reason. And I understand. And when it came to the point that, um, man, you continue like this, you might get killed,
Right.
I wasn't worried so much about myself, but when it came to my family, my younger brother and my younger sister say, Buti, you got to stop this, you're going to get killed, they have their own contacts too, you're not going to get killed, and you get killed, they'll kill us too, you got to stop. I say, kids, guys, I can't stop, it's impossible, and that's when I knew, no, I don't belong here, it's my
You
home, but I don't belong here.
you needed to go somewhere where your voice would be appreciated.
Yes,
Yes, and you
where my
could
voice
speak.
was
You could
appreciated.
speak.
Yes.
Yeah. So 6 books in, right?
6 books in. The first, When the Mighty Fall, is about my life in Norway, those first 25 years. Machona, it's about inspired by my father. It's not my father's biography. Is my father. It's inspired by my father's and his generation's life in South Africa. You can then translate for us as first generation immigrants, in USA, for you, for me in Norway. This one, Machona son, is I'm looking at the condition of being an immigrant from a third generation, immigrant's child.
Right.
In this case, a son, because I am a man, so. But I'm also going to write about Machona daughter, your daughters, and then from there came Machona Awakening. This is reflections, my reflections as I put them in my blog, more like a diary of my experiences during those 5 years in South Africa. How I acknowledge I was sick, I needed help, with myself, and build myself up here. And then there's Machona blogs. This is the heavily political side, of my reflection. This is where travel was. And then number 6 was inspired by my mother's life and women in her position, foreign women who get married to foreign men.
Right.
Local women who marry foreign men, their
And
experiences and challenges.
right. And that's always just based off of where you are, right? So if you're in Zambia and you're Zambian.
And then the newest, number 7, deals with the COVID-19 and killing conspiracy theories. It will be out anytime soon. Just some small operational matters, issues, and it be out. And so I'm addressing, to actually what is happening now, the current situation.
Right. So, I want to thank you. I want to thank you for being open to coming on here. And I think that just the fact that you've written 6 books is extraordinary enough. I think that there has been, definitely having known you for, just like Ojipa, for a significant portion of my life, it is always great to find homeboys and homegirls who are just living authentically. I think that's been really the catalyst for my show. The fact that authenticity is key. I think it's not about did you end up with riches. It's not about did you end up living in some castle. It's really just about did you end up living rich in your heart, in your mind, and did you build a castle for yourself so that when you die, you build a castle in your spirit that you can rest easy knowing that you can sleep in any one of those rooms in your spirit without being worried that somebody's going to come and take something from you. So for me, that's been the most important journey, I think, journey to self. And I commend you from working on yourself and being open and vulnerable about your depression and sharing the story of how you worked yourself through that and worked others through that. So we'll let you have the last word before we end the show. But, definitely thank you, my brother, for coming on. And you're always welcome. Maybe we'll come back and we'll talk a little bit about COVID and you once the book is out. All right.
Yeah. I love that very much, and do that very much. And thank you very much, man. Keep doing the good work. Talking about authenticity. Look in the mirror and say that to yourself. I'm very proud of you. You have always, sought, to find, that authentic lines of being yourself. You must remember, I've known you since you were, a little boy, so I've seen you growing
Yep.
up, Today
Yep,
we
yep.
are men, and all that, and I really am very, very proud, a family man, take care of the family, and I also know, your wife, from that time, and so thank you very much again. It has been an honor, and I would be happy, to contribute in any way I can as we continue this fantastic journey. It ain't over yet, man. It's still a long, long way to go.
We got work to do. We got work to
Boy,
do.
we got work to do, man.
And the
Thank you very
appropriate
much
way,
for
the appropriate way, if I was standing, Sensei, would be for me to give you, a proper bow.
I will. I will
Yeah,
do it.
I can't necessarily move around, but I definitely owe
Right.
you.
Thank
I
you.
owe you
Thank
a
you
karate bow.
very much.
So God bless, and we shall definitely be talking soon. Okay.
Indeed. Thank you very
All
much.
right.
Cheers. All the
Cheers.
best. Regards to one and all.
Thank
Love you,
you.
man.
The Wholehearted Men Show. The Wholehearted Men Show. The Wholehearted Men Show.
The Wholehearted Men Show is a production of the Institute for Wholehearted Men at www.wholemen.org.